Subscribe, motherfucker.
Finally, after all this time, I am able to download Bitwig 4. I will replace you. It only took me 4 hours to download. Welcome to Bitwig 4. Even though I am late to the party, I still am going to go over some of the major features. I will say that the two major features that have been covered with the update of Bitwig 4 are particularly welcome, even though they're not the most useful to me in particular. That doesn't mean that they might not be useful to you, except for one major thing, and I'm not going to wait to the end of the video to tell you that, but they've added Apple Silicon support, and as you all know, I'm on an M1 Mac, so I'm hoping to see the results and differences and efficiency. I've waited 4 hours to film this video, and so if I'm a little bit loopy and a little bit crazy, I have yet to have my coffee, I've yet to make music today, got so much recording and editing to do, so just bear with me. Oh, and by the way, make sure that you subscribe. And if you didn't know, I've started a TikTok and you can check out the remixes that I've been doing from popular artists. Anyway, I have the new release notes up and over here. We're not going to go through all of these because this is going to make this an incredibly long video, but I'm going to go ahead and highlight some of the major ones here and then we'll actually dive in to the DAW and I'll show you what all of these can do. Okay, first and foremost, comping. Basically, comping is something like this to where if you have a looped region recorded and you continue to record the same loop, then you can go right here and then when you double click on this, first things first, you might have this, but you want to go into clip and then you want to go into comp mode. But now you can see that all of the takes that I have, take 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, shows up here. And what I can do is just select the best region and that will automatically replace it. Now this is nice. And what I can also do is adjust these now without taking over the recording, or I can kind of zoom in and do all this stuff. And some people really like this, especially for neuro design, because what it does is allow you to take the best cuts from like maybe a sound design jam or something and be like, I want this one, and now I want this one, and then I want this one. And what's cool now is that they've actually added a lot of features that make it easier to navigate this. For example, the scrubbing stuff is a lot easier. I haven't used this enough to remember what the differences between everything are, but I can say that it's a little bit easier to manipulate, especially when trying to do stuff in this region. And can I duplicate? I cannot duplicate. Can I move that over? I cannot move that over. So you still have to select one region in order for that to be there. It's not perfect, but I do think that it's off to a great start. And I think that anybody that is into live recording is going to dig this feature, especially when you're not doing super surgical, like selecting cuts and stuff. But what is cool is now, I don't know if this was before or after, but I do believe that you can actually select multiple takes at the same time. Maybe it's via this way. There you go. And then now you can edit those all together as well. So if I were to highlight both of these in theory, now if I grab that, there we go. So we can do stuff in that sense. And this can be kind of cool if, again, if you're just trying to create some cool randomization stuff. Which actually can be kind of sick because, like, let's say like you start focusing on things in aspects of rhythm and then you start scrubbing through the sample in that way, and then like you just want to do like some cool kind of EDM thing where, can I move this over here? No, I don't. I can't. So I'll just select that and then I'll go here and maybe I'll try this one. Doesn't really matter. And then which is kind of cool. I know that this recording is kind of quiet. There we go. But you can do a lot of different things in that aspect. I do still think that they should add, you know, like maybe aspects of like Command D or so. And I think that it's counterintuitive towards the workflow environment that they're trying to exemplify, because this isn't the audio editor. This is a comp thing. But at the same time, the more flexibility, the better, because then I can select between all of these, something like that. And then what if I wanted to repeat this right here? For example, I would have to kind of, yeah. So unfortunately, it's not the most robust, but at the same time, I do think that it's kind of cool. I do hope that they improve on that feature in general, because I do think that that could be something that could be pretty awesome. However, comping in general has become a standard. Before it was like, I think it was like the Cubase thing, maybe. Ableton added it in Live 11 and everybody loves it. So I'm sure that it's going to be a welcome feature for Bitwig 4. And before we move on, something else that can be kind of interesting is if you have a pre-recorded clip already, so like let's say you don't actually do live recording, well, what you can do is you can actually highlight this and kind of move it down this way, and then go to fold to takes, and you can set the region of how many takes you want to do. So kind of like what I was talking about from before, let's say we want to divide this into 4 takes. Well, now this is going to expand into 4 different things. Now the thing about this is that every single take right here is actually different stuff. For example, if I were to just play this, well, that's kind of cool. Well, maybe I wanted to create some kind of phrase or something that's like this, and then maybe I wanted to take this one, and then maybe just, I don't know, something like this. Doesn't really matter. Then you can start to see that you can get some interesting results in that way. Now, again, I think that one of the issues with making baselines and stuff this way is that it forces you into a linear approach, as opposed to just doing something like this. I want this section here. Now I actually like this section, but I want it to be over here, and then I want this section right here, and I want it to be there. But at the same time, even with the chopping board aspect, I do see that there can be some advantages to doing stuff in the traditional sense. So it's really about learning your tools and about trying to realize what the most efficient way to do things are. However, for me in particular, I probably wouldn't use this for baselines just because I do things, well, differently. But that doesn't mean that you have to, right? Okay, Benson, next feature. Before we get into the operator stuff, which I think is probably one of the most useful things, let's go ahead and talk about doing the spread function towards anything that's within the MIDI editor or even the clip editor. So I have recorded this little section here, which is the same thing as this. I just bounced it out. But you can see here that on the timbre selection, you can see that this is spread across with a couple of points. Now what I can do very simply is just highlight all of these, and then what you'll get is a little box over here, and you can see that you can actually spread these values in a random sense or change them out as well. And I think that this is actually pretty cool, because if you don't have an MPE controller and you kind of just want to set like maybe some general curves over this or something, that could actually be incredibly useful for, you know, just getting more expressiveness out of MPE devices, even if you don't have an MPE controller. One thing that I do hope that they add in the future is you can't double click. You can't double click anywhere in order to do that, and you also can't use the draw mode now for some reason. I'm not sure if that's what's up with that, but I would like the ability to do that, because that would just kind of open up the door and make MPE in general as accessible as possible, and I don't think that would be too complicated to do. Now to the main event. All right, let's go ahead and talk about operators. So before we go into anything else, what I'm actually going to do is pull up some kind of drum rack, drum machine, drum and bass. Yeah. 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 Sweet. Okay, so I'm just going to come on over here and make myself a kick. Let's go ahead and fast forward everything. So I've got myself a cool little beat now, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and drag this over into the clip view and just delete this one because it's going to make things easier for my life. Now, what we have over here on the left is this new idea called operators. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about are the clip exclusive features, because right now, if you look over here, we've got this cool little thing that says seed and that says random, but we don't really have anything to mess. So what we need to do is we need to grab some kind of MIDI or so. So I'm just going to grab every other one from here. I can't count. And I'm going to set the chance right here to maybe 35%. So this is important to realize because it's not really going to work in the timeline view, but if you have something that's looping, then take a listen. Right now we had this at a 16th note to where it's going, but because we have chance on every other beat now, let's see what happens. Yeah. You can see here that it's actually randomized in that way, and that can be useful in some cases, especially if you're just trying to have, you know, some cool variation and stuff. But keep in mind that if you want it to be consistent, then you would probably have to print that audio out. There's some other things that we can do that will continue to make this a little bit more interesting too. What we can do is we can go to right click and then go to expand, and now we can expand however many repeats of this we want to, and we have a couple of options here that says either preserve chance or preserve spread. I'm going to leave both of these off and go into 4 bars of expansion, and let's see what that does on the next clip. So we've got 4 bounces. I wouldn't say bounces because they're still in MIDI, but 4 duplications of that MIDI clip, except each one in theory is going to be just a little bit different. So let's take a listen. So in essence, what really happened was, if we look over here, the chance is still on all of these, and you can actually see that with this little icon right here. That might be kind of hard to see. I'm zoom. Yeah, look at that. Look at that high res circular thing. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm sorry guys, I'm on one today. But what happened was, it took all of the chances that this had, and then it actually printed it to MIDI over here. So that way, if you wanted to preserve a performance, rather, you still have that, but it's in the option of MIDI. Now, like I said, you can also do this in audio still as well, but this is an excellent thing that you can do in order to kind of, you know, put a lot of things together and create just a bunch of different variations of just a single instrument. Actually, the way that I think of this, if you're comfortable with working in MIDI, is pretty awesome, because if you are like one of those people that's like, I'm stuck in the 8-bar loop, well, just like, if you have this in MIDI, or even if you have this in audio, like for example, if I were to take a drum loop, where are you? Yeah! Yeah! Okay, sorry that was so loud. So you can pretty much do the same thing here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right click, and then I'm going to slice and place to maybe just eighth notes like this. It's going to make my life a lot easier. But now what I can also do is come on over here and highlight whatever, doesn't really matter. And now that I've got this whole loop or whatever, with all of these selected, I can manipulate the chance as well, or I can even do the spread aspect, which is what we were talking about from before. This is pretty cool, because now that I have this, let's say this is my 8-bar loop, well, just like stem out, right? So stem some stuff out and then throw it into here for a second, and then throw this on and see what it does, if anything cool. Yeah. All right, obviously this is stretched and it's not supposed to be in the way that it needs to be. But at the same time, I think that you can get the gist of that. And then you can do the same thing, which is expand and go into, let's do 2 this time just for the sake of time. And now this will expand into this aspect. Then you can have this duality relationship between the clip mode, because when you come back to this, you'll see that everything is different. Now, of course, this is a little bit more difficult to detect because it's in audio and it's like, wait, what am I looking at? But rest assured, there are differences between the two. Side-by-side comparison. Let's go in. Okay, so that's different. That's different. Not big differences, but that's okay. The more that you put that randomization on there, the more that it's going to do all the things. But that's not all. Let's say that this is an entirely single MIDI clip, just like this. And instead of having to go through and draw all of the things, if you come on over here and you actually go into repeat, then what this will do is, depending on how many you set this to, it'll actually repeat the same MIDI note. Take a look at the lines that's over here. So if I have less, you'll see that it'll kind of expand, and then the more that you have, the more that it'll consolidate. So if we take a listen to just this part, well, suddenly we've got those different variations and stuff. And what you can do is you can actually change the velocity of this as well. So if I wanted this to kind of decrease in velocity over time, I believe that's what that does. You can see there that it gets louder. This would be cool if you could also spread this out, because that would take away the need to like draw in a bunch of things. And I suppose that you can always do the next feature, which is what I want to talk about, of coming in here and then going into slice at repeats, which is dope. Now that all of this is available, we've pretty much got the same idea of MIDI, and then we can come in here and go into the velocity and come on up to here and then go to randomize the velocity, and now we've got our cool randomization stuff to humanize this a little bit better. The MIDI aspect of this has improved dramatically. There are some basic functionalities within the MIDI editor that I still think could be improved on by quite a bit, but this does open up a whole new door to making some cool stuff. That's not all though. Let's go ahead and talk about the other aspect of operators of if this, then that, which is pretty much a recurrence aspect. So what you can do is you can set these to come on and say like, okay, every 4 bars, this is going to trigger this, or it's not going to trigger this. And then on this one, every 4 bars it's going to trigger this, or it's not going to trigger this. And you can set that to pretty much have these values about when they are going to recur. That means that maybe on this recurrence, you have that going on, and then that's set to there, and then every other one, it's actually going to turn itself off. So think of it as like an on-off switch with these divisions. And then you can also set parameters of it's never going to play, or it's only going to play on the first one. It's never going to play on the first one. It's only going to do it before the last event, and you so on. And then you've got all these other aspects as well, which is pretty neat. So if we take a listen to this again, you can see here that it's actually pretty complex, because even though this is on, this is off, this is on, this is off, we're still manipulating this by the idea of chance. So if you were to do something that were absolute, for example, on this one, you've pretty much selected that this is on, and then on this one you select completely off, then that means that this is going to ignore these two, so that way it's not going to play whenever this is activated, right? So it's kind of confusing to wrap your head around, but once you get it, it's actually pretty neat, and yeah, I like this stuff. Even though, like I said, it's not really for me. It's not really how I make music in particular. It definitely adds a whole new idea of expression and a whole new idea of just having a lot of fun with jamming. And I think that's really important as far as like music creation and stuff too, is to just take some time to do jamming and all that. But, you know, you could be like, man, this is the coolest thing ever. And you know what? More power to you. Okay, so to be honest with you, I still don't really understand what the fill mode means. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up because I am usually pretty good at critical thinking, but this is a little confusing. So it says that it provides modulator signals for 3 project-wide controls. So fill A is a modulator signal reflecting the current fill mode state. Fill A diamond B, a bipolar modulator signal reflecting the current global crossfade value. And then play is a modulator signal reflecting whether the transport is currently playing. So I'm kind of curious as to what this actually is. The fill A, B, and sources can be used as global control sources, routing hardware controllers, or automation to any and all tracks. I'm not really sure what that means. It seems like it's some kind of global modulator, but I don't really understand like what all the global aspect of that is. So if anybody knows in the comment section, then let's all learn together. I don't know everything. Again, when new stuff comes out, you can't really expect me to be like, I know everything about this. So, polarity help. No, I'm just kidding. Mac OS support. Yes, that's amazing. So fun fact, the reason why I didn't actually do a beta 4 review was because version 1 didn't work on the current version of the Mac that I had. So unfortunately, sad day. However, now that everything is up and running, we are doing this long-winded stuff. Improved export options. Yeah, MP3. Finally. Okay, so that one's pretty easy. If we go on over here and go to export audio, we've got different options now. Volbis. What even is that? I've never heard of that before, but it's pretty cool. And whenever you bounce something, I believe that you can also change the bit depth about how that goes. So this one goes all the way still to 32-bit. This goes all the way to 320 kilobits per second. And then this is probably like super duper high quality with 192 kilobits per second. Seems pretty OP. Let's see, new features. So this might actually be a new feature, and unfortunately I don't have anything to really test this with, but you can import some data from FL, Ableton, and Oxy can now export a Bitwig Studio project file. I don't even know what Oxy is. So this is actually pretty cool. So if you are in the habit of, you know, stimming and all that stuff, I still don't know how it works, but if you're trying to transfer over, then I think that some of the information or some of the characteristics might lead over. My guess is that it will take the MIDI and like the matching devices, like maybe like a compressor to compressor might work or something, but I'm not really sure. I have no way of testing this. Yes, I have Ableton Live, but I don't have any projects saved right now. Yeah, that is kind of interesting, and I'd like to see what that does and how that works in the future. Waveforms are now shown in a perceptual scale by default for easier reading, settings and dashboard, all that. So that's just some quality of life changes towards waveforms for audio files for this kind of stuff. New controller scripts, track monitoring, Polymer now handles extreme resonance, and then we've got a bunch of fixes that I am not going to bore you with. So yeah, let's go ahead and actually have like a heart-to-heart conversation really quick, because I think that a lot of you probably already have Bitwig and you're coming into the question of Alchemy, should I upgrade or not? Well, maybe. That's the answer. The thing that I love about Bitwig so much is the flexibility in which it allows you to create music. And I'm not saying that the others don't do that. I just don't think that they do that quite to the extent that Bitwig offers. If you were to see the way that I make music, which I go live usually on Fridays to actually do production, I pretty much have a very peculiar way of how I like to put things together. But the overall flexibility with this is probably its biggest selling point. And I think that with the ideas of comping and the new operator modes, if you're somebody that likes to rely on randomness, or actually if you're somebody that likes to rely on getting the precise cut or the precise recording, it's kind of interesting that it's polar opposite, then this is something that can be very valuable to you. At the same time, there are some features that we've been begging for that they still haven't added. For example, I really want my Bitwig layout to be hot pink. Fight me. Okay, maybe not, but having different colors and different skins would be very nice. The aspect of still no MSEG modulator, of course, is like a meme now. My thing that I would really like to see in Bitwig 5 or 6 or somewhere in my lifetime before I become a skeleton are three things, because I'm being selfish. I really want a convolution reverb. It doesn't really matter what it is, just some kind of convolution reverb, or like having, maybe even have that in the grid to where like you can shape that or something and use that in the grid effects. That would be amazing. MSEG would be cool, but that's not really something that I care about anymore these days, but I know that you all do, so I'm not going to ignore that. I would really like the ability to automate or to modulate or set modulators to the inspector controls in here, or to at least some of them, right? Imagine being able to have some kind of modulator towards the regular stuff like the gain, or, you know, this stuff of the panning or the pitching and all that. And yes, there's other ways to do that with actual effects, but when it comes into stuff that's specific like audio, to where you have something in this region of changing the stretch modes, or changing the grain size or the tempo, those are some things, like even if you just allow us to modulate the tempo, even if you just allow us to modulate the grain size to some degree, or to, you know, change something in that aspect, that would be incredible. The final thing that I have on my wish list before I would crown Bitwig as the ultimate end-all be-all piece of software would be some kind of slicer, some kind of thing that I can actually use to come into here and throw this into, you know, a sampler or whatever, without having to bounce this into a multi-sample, find different cuts and slices for me that have different warp modes. I know what you're thinking, and I'm going to be quite blatant. Yes, I want simpler in Bitwig. Yes, I want something like that, but that is because the way that I work and the way that I make IDM or glitch music or whatever is by finding these cuts, and the easier that the program can give me something in order to find those pieces faster and more efficiently means that I make music faster. Yay! Other than that, I really can't say anything. Bitwig is so close to like having everything that I need personally, and I usually have nothing but good things to say about it, except for the roast, of course, but that's all really like a joke. In essence, if these two, I guess, features aren't your forte, then I would say wait. But if comping is something that you have been desiring for a long time, then I would say upgrade, or you can wait for a sale, or you can use 10% off of my discount code that I offer, or just wait. It doesn't matter. There's all the things in between. So let me know your thoughts. Are you guys happy with Bitwig Studio 4? Has it become the end-all be-all for all of your music production needs? Is it something that you are still upset about, that still makes you salty at night because they didn't add that darn MSEG? With all that being said, thank you all so much. Please do me a favor, subscribe to my channel. What are you waiting for? Help me get to 10K. Don't you want to see who's going to get that M2X sub pack? I know you do. Much love, everybody. I will see you all very soon. I'm going to make some coffee now.